There always seems to be so much confusion about type 1 diabetes. Mostly, people don't understand that there are different types of diabetes. In this video today, I'll briefly touch base on all forms of diabetes, but my main focus will be on explaining the differences between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. Hi, my name is Jillian. I've been living with type 1 diabetes for nearly 32 years. I'm a stay-at-home mom with 2 young children. This is my diabetes lifestyle channel. In this channel, you'll gain access to a lot of information about type 1 diabetes, and also you'll get a look at how I balance my life living with a chronic illness and raising a young family. Let's start this video off by listing the different forms of diabetes. There is type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, which I will go into further detail in a bit. There's gestational diabetes, which is basically diabetes during pregnancy. LADA is latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. MODY is mature onset of diabetes in the young. So LADA acts more like type 1 diabetes in someone that developed it later in life. It's much more slower progressing than type 1 diabetes. It does deal with insulin deficiency, so those who have LADA either don't produce enough insulin or any. And on the other hand, MODY acts more like type 2 diabetes in the young children who develop it. So that is involving insulin resistance. Doing some research for this video, I also came across neonatal diabetes, Wolfram syndrome, and Alström syndrome. What is type 1 diabetes? Type 1 diabetes is a chronic condition where the pancreas produces little to no insulin. It's an autoimmune disease which is developed by your immune system attacking your healthy beta cells. Now, these can be caused by viral infections, certain medications. A lot of people have the theory that vaccines can be involved in this. I'm not going to elaborate on that at all, but look into it. There's a lot of research. Stress can trigger autoimmune diseases, and also genes. Type 1 diabetes is usually developed in young children or adolescents. Type 2 diabetes is a chronic condition that affects the way the body processes blood sugar or glucose. It's not an autoimmune disease, and a lot of times it is developed through lifestyle choices, diet, and weight. Obesity a lot of times goes hand in hand with type 2 diabetes. Okay, so now let's talk about the differences between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. When we're talking about type 1 diabetes, it's referring to insulin deficiency. So like I said, type 1 diabetics either don't produce enough insulin or don't produce any insulin. Type 2 diabetics deal with insulin resistance. So it's insulin deficiency with type 1 and insulin resistance with type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetics must take insulin to live, no matter what. You may have heard of some diabetics that claim they don't need to take insulin prior to meals anymore. I've heard of people on really strict diets that can come to that level. I have not gotten there, unfortunately. It would be nice. No matter what, they will always need a baseline insulin. You need insulin with type 1 diabetes or you will die. A type 2 diabetic can manage their diabetes using insulin if it comes to that. You can manage type 2 diabetes with diet changes, exercise, and there's also medications such as metformin. There is no cure for type 1 diabetes that I know of. I mean, there's been many claims. There's no cure on the market. Let's just go ahead and say that. So it is a lifelong battle, whether it's type 1 or type 2, but really with type 2, the appropriate changes can be made. Really, you're going to be putting your type 2 diabetes in remission. You're always going to have to worry about high blood sugars. resistance to insulin and your body not processing blood glucose properly. If type 1 is controlled properly, you shouldn't see any lasting effects or diabetes complications, hopefully. Diabetes really doesn't cause anything. It's the high blood sugars. So when you're speaking to a type 1 diabetic and you're saying diabetes causes this, diabetes causes that, no, that's not true. It's the high blood sugars. But with type 2, there are some parameters with that. You're considered type 2 if your blood glucose is in a certain range. Type 1, it doesn't matter where your blood glucose is. You're always going to need the insulin, so you will always be considered a type 1 diabetic. There are pancreas transplants available to type 1 diabetics, but the issue with that is you normally need to have serious complications to even be considered for the surgery, because a lot of times there's huge side effects. I mean, a pancreas transplant is a huge surgery, and most of the time your body will reject it anyway. Double diabetes. Now this is when you have type 1 diabetes and you are insulin deficient, and throughout time you become insulin resistant. It's brought on by taking an excess amount of insulin. You really should work on trying to get your insulin needs lowered as much as you can. The double diabetes comes on a lot when people are overweight too. A great way I found to lower my insulin resistance is to work out on a regular schedule. It makes me a lot more insulin sensitive, which is the opposite of insulin resistant. So had great success with that. Why did I develop type 1 diabetes? There's not an exact answer to that, but my mom had gestational diabetes when she was pregnant with my brother, and later doctors diagnosed her with type 1 diabetes. So gestational diabetes does not cause type 1 diabetes. It does give you a greater chance of developing type 2 diabetes in life, so you really have to watch that. But my grandfather also had type 1 diabetes, so that was her father. And one of my cousins had type 1 diabetes. He sadly passed away around age 30. So it did run in my mom's side of the family. Really, she could have developed type 1 diabetes, but I think it might have been LADA that could have stemmed from her gestational diabetes. But my mom was diagnosed with diabetes no matter what, whether it's LADA, which acts like type 1 diabetes anyway, or actual type 1 diabetes. It's present in my mom's side of the family. And also my dad's sister, so my paternal aunt, had type 1 diabetes. So I had it on both sides of the family. It could have been the genes, or it could have just been the luck of the draw. Really, anyone can get type 1 diabetes, so it doesn't necessarily have to be from a gene in your family. You do have a greater chance of getting it if it is present in your family though. Type 2 diabetes is very present in my mom's side of the family, but that is strictly from lifestyle choices. That did not give me type 1 diabetes. I really hope this video can clear up some confusion about type 1 diabetes out there. My kids may or may not develop type 1 diabetes. There is some research with some genes that can be tested to see if they have the gene that passes type 1 diabetes down, but I have not gone through that process yet. That's something I'll look into within the next year or two. I am really careful if they do have any type of illness or seem to be extra thirsty, kind of neurotic about it. I check their blood sugar. Just a simple finger prick and it's a quick ouch. Alice doesn't even notice it. With Vincent, it's just a mental thing because he's 4.5 and he doesn't want to be poked. But they're fine. They show no signs of diabetes. Could be passed down. They could have a greater chance of it. But I do know if they do develop type 1 diabetes, they will be under the best control they can be, because I have researched everything out there and maintain pretty good control myself. So they will be under very good control and hopefully not develop any complications, because diabetes does not cause complications. High blood sugars do. Please remember that. If you can keep your blood sugar in range, and that's an 83 target, not the 70 to 180 range that the ADA teaches you is appropriate. It's as close to 83 as you can get. So if you can stay at that number most of your time, you won't develop complications. diabetes does not automatically give you high blood sugar and type 1 diabetes. That is how type 2 diabetes is defined, not type 1. So there are some differences, and I hope that clears a few things up for you. If you like this video, please don't forget to check out my other videos. I have 7 other videos up right now. Most of those are informative videos. I am going to be experimenting in more vlogging in the future, so you get a look at my family life more. If you have any questions about this topic, please leave them in the comments below and I will get back to you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you over in the next video.